Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Before we get started, if anyone has a story they would like to share, contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. Give some contact information, a brief description of your story. If anyone wants to contribute to help make this show, it's very much appreciated. You can go to a link in the description, PayPal me, click that link. It's super easy to use, and every contribution is very much appreciated. Now, before we move on to our guest, the three winners for the flashlights are Don Vesser, and then the other winner was the Mechanic, and the third winner was Wolfram Raven Poe. That's the names of the three people. I commented on the video that I talked about the other two flashlights being given away. I commented to these last two winners and to send a address, and we'll get those out soon. Be patient, waiting for the email to get the addresses, and then I'll ship them all. All right, today we have a Bigfoot researcher who's had some very interesting encounters, and his name is Kurt Stanley. Lives in Oklahoma. He is friends with the Bigfoot Outlaws. Very, very interesting encounter he's going to share and talk a little bit about the Chicken Man from Oklahoma. Hope you all enjoy. Okay, Kurt, if you would, I'd like for you to introduce yourself and give us kind of a brief bio on yourself, please.
I sure will, Brenton. Kurt Stanley. I'm 57. I am a semi-retired professional musician. And then in 2000, I got my computer degree, and I've been a computer repairman along with investigating the prairie apes or Bigfoot or whatever you like to call them. And I'd like to spend a lot of time out camping, hunting, fishing, and I enjoy motorcycle riding. And pretty much anything on the Bigfoot subject, I've always got an open ear for. That's about it.
And where do you live?
I live in Oklahoma, the central part of Oklahoma, just about 3 miles as a crow flies from the Concho Indian Reservation.
Wow, that must be a nice place to be when it comes to doing the squatching stuff, huh?
Yeah, it sure beats living in town, which I've done and have to drive out to tromp around. You can just step out the back door or the front door, and you've got, quarter mile, half mile driveway, and at least that far to the next house or more. Lots of trees and creeks, and it's just beautiful out in the country,
Right. Now, the Bigfoot Outlaws really well, don't you?
I have not got to personally meet any of them, but I feel like I know a couple of them real well, and I aspire to become a full-fledged outlaw someday. And I've over the last few years, I've gotten a lot of good information from them, and I do belong to their web page, and I stay in contact with several of them. I admire their work, and it fits my beliefs and criteria pretty good. So I can't say anything bad about them. That's all I got to say on that.
Right. Well, I mean, you've been researching Bigfoot for a really long time, and and they know who you are and what have you, I would say that they at some point would make you an outlaw officially. That's my opinion, because just by talking to you, that you certainly have the belief similar to them, and are very knowledgeable, in my opinion. And go ahead.
Oh well, I hope. I probably threw a few hints towards Bear about it, but hey, if you ever need an Okie outlaw down here, I'd sure like to be. That I would, like I said, I would aspire to be an outlaw, and I'm kind of like a couple of the outlaws anyway. Bear for sure. Jim King, he always says, well, I don't really like using the word researcher. I'm more of a investigator. I read what other people have spent hours of time researching, and then I go investigate my own findings and other people's findings. If once in a while we'll get a call and somebody will say they've heard something, there's something killing their rabbits or chickens or something, and I've made some investigations and done some reports. Probably not like the bylaws of the BFRO or anyone like that, but we seem to get to the bottom of it most of the time. And again, I would hope that they, would give me a fair shake when it comes time to put new members on. I probably got a little over 20 years of serious investigation under my belt, and I'm still learning stuff, and I learned a lot of it. Like I said, I've learned from radio podcasts and a lot of reading and shows like yours.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, that I'm sure they'd be proud to have you at some point, whatever their decision making process is. But I really like listening to Matt and Bear and Kumbo, and I believe the first time I ever heard you was on their show, wasn't it? Weren't you talking about the Chicken Man?
Oh yeah. Matt just let the recorder go, and we had a blast doing that interview. I don't know how long it lasted. I believe he made 3 separate shows out of it, and it's like they say at the very beginning, you got Bear talking on there, and one of the statements, every show starts like that, where he will mention how the conversation may get off in a different direction, yeah. But that's Bigfoot,
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, there's no other people that you can listen to that could just sit around and talk and be fun to listen to, other than those guys that I know of. So many shows. I mean, they do shows every week, and they really don't have many times have guests come on. That's how much experience and knowledge they have. It's incredible. I love listening to those guys, and I have a lot of respect for Matt, Bear, and Kumbo, and from what I've learned from you, speaking with you, I think you would be a good fit for them. So I would endorse you for being a Bigfoot outlaw if Matt, Bear, and Kumbo hears this. Bring him on. Bring this guy on.
Yeah. A couple other great outlaws, original outlaws, is Dan and Vicky, and they've got some really hair-raising stories as well, and a lot of evidence, and I like listening to their shows. There's a bunch of them that have gone out and done some investigating and researching, both, I guess, with those people, and I just like the way they do stuff and handle stuff and talk about it, because there's so much other, I don't know, it gets pretty analytical at times, and And you know, that part of it's good. I'm not saying it's not. You listen to Coonbo. I mean, there's a guy, when you talk about, well, what's he think he is, a rocket scientist or work for NASA or something? And yeah, he did.
I know, it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
You know, whenever I first heard the name Kumbo, I was thinking, man, this guy's going to be country, you know. But and he was a NASA scientist. I mean, I love listening to all of them, and they're all, I think, very intelligent people. Bear, Kumbo, and Mark, or Matt, I'm sorry. And I absolutely love listening to their show. As soon as I see one's uploaded, I'm on it as soon as possible. But enough for plugging the Outlaws. Let's talk about in the beginning days of your research. Let's say this: there didn't used to be the name Bigfoot. When people encountered these creatures, they called them different names throughout the country and I guess throughout the world. And you know, whenever I was listening to you on their show that time, you were talking about the Chicken Man. Before we get to your encounters, could you tell us about the Chicken Man and the reason they called it Chicken Man? Because the term Bigfoot really wasn't around yet.
The Bigfoot phrase didn't come until they got those tracks. Where was that, California?
Yeah.
Something like that. But back when I was about 10 years old, I guess it was late 60s, that's right, maybe 70, somewhere between that period. I am not a scholar of knowledge to the point I can tell you exactly what year it was, but this creature, they kind of dubbed it the abominable chicken man. That was it, the abominable chicken man. Because I guess the abominable snowman had been passed around at that time. That had been reported, and tracks were found and this and that in the Himalayas. So I think they dubbed this thing right around where I live the Chicken Man, because it broke into a farm just west of Oklahoma City here. It's just north of El Reno, and it broke in and killed a bunch of chickens and left a lot of evidence at the farm. It wasn't sighted that night. It was late at night, but basically, to make a long or possibly long story short, the farmer, of course, reported it, and I don't know if the sheriff's department more likely came out, and they found the door of the coop had been ripped off, and they did find some strange handprints on the door. So they, loaded it up and ended up taking it over to the Oklahoma City Zoo. And I guess the zoologist at the time, the head zoologist, was a guy by the name of, I believe it was Lawrence Curtis. And he did the investigation on the prints. They were, I believe, 7 inch by 5 inch. And his findings were that it was from a primate, but he was uncertain of what kind. And then just directly around that exact time, about 16 miles away, and again, up and down the river there, I can go on about the river a lot because that's where I believe their migratory routes. They may spread from there down creeks or tree lines, but they like that river. And just about 16 miles from there, the guy by the name of, I think, Dreesen, and he lives out there in Calumet. It's just west of El Reno. And he had described sounds and sightings as what he was describing as big chimpanzees. Then, again, this is back in, I don't know, anywhere from 67 to 1970. And he left bananas and oranges out for it, and he wanted to capture it. But he never did. And I feel sorry for him if he had. And basically, I guess the ending of all that, because of no evidence of a body or anything else, as usual, and they didn't have the phones and the cell cameras and stuff like that then. I believe it was just right after or right before or sometime during that time, not long after or before, there was a couple of guys hunting, coon hunting, down along the river, and this took place a mile from where I lived and grew up out in the country at that time. And they were, I guess, the old boy, they'd stopped and took a break and had some coffee in the truck. It was chilly. And this is during the, around this time of year or December or sometime when it was chilly, and they were having some coffee, and one old boy thought he saw a skunk out in front of the truck, and he had aimed his rifle down on it and was getting a beat on it, and he saw what he thought was reflectors coming down across the river. And like somebody had put a couple of reflectors up on a stump or something for a marker, and then they blinked at him, I guess, and the thing took off and ran down the river, headed, I believe he said, west, back towards El Reno. And I don't know how good of a look he saw at it. I believe he saw quite a bit. We've heard from him since. He's still around, and I believe he was a retired law enforcement officer. So anyway, that's pretty much the short story of the Chicken Man.
And when that thing ran off, he saw something running on two legs bipedally.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Hopping from dang near from one riverbank to the other. And I mean, during certain times of the year, the river can be, where you might have to wade across a foot of water for 5 foot or 6 foot. It's too far for us to jump from one bank to the other, but this thing was doing a pretty good job of it.
Right. And I guess when the guy was looking at the handprint on the door from this thing stealing the chickens, I'm thinking that maybe the thumb placement on it is more like an ape or a monkey kind of thumb placement. Is that what it means?
Well, yeah. There's some actual photos of that, and I believe you can look that up from. It was taken from the Daily Oklahoman, which is the major big newspaper over in Oklahoma City, and they had an article on it years ago. But it's got a picture of the director, Curtis, sitting in front of these prints, and they've managed to bring the prints up, because I believe I was a kid, but I do remember it being greasy and bloody, kind of both, greasy and bloody. And that left a heck of a good print, And I want to say he said the thumb was unusual. It was crooked or deformed or injured or something, and but he definitely said it was more primate, than a human.
Well, that's interesting, because when the scientific community sees something that they think is primate, then that's got to make them kind of take notice. But yeah, the river systems, I remember when I was listening to you talk before, that I thought that was very interesting, because Oklahoma a lot of times is very flat, and there's not a tremendous amount of trees in some of these areas. But if there are trees around that follows the rivers, even if it's just a corridor, these things will follow these rivers and be able to access other areas. And I thought that was a very interesting point to ponder on how they might migrate to different areas. And I heard you talking about that, so I thought that was pretty cool. But
oh yeah, yeah, that's I mean, it's like a highway. It's like a booger highway. I don't have any doubt about it. You know, if you were, now it depends on who you're putting out to look for me, but I bet you if I was naturally camouflaged and stealthy and and this and that, I could get from, you know, probably a mile to half a mile or more right past you, and you never see me.
Right, right.
If you were standing there watching for me, you know, there's all kinds of ways to get through there. A lot of cottonwood trees, and some of them are huge. You know, the trunk of the tree is so big, I could stand behind it until you walked on and went looking for me someplace else, and then move a little bit further down. And it's, but I mean, not that I have any kind of stealthy. I make a lot of noise. I do.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I bust right through there, and I don't try to be super quiet or dress a certain way, or, you know, I just dress what's comfortable. If there's a lot of brush, I wear, you know, brush clothing, and if there's a lot of ticks and stuff, I put repellent on, and you know, I don't have Van Halen playing in my any headset or anything when I'm walking. I want to use my ears, but I don't try to. I don't think that what you call the deer hunter mentality works with these things. But anyway, yeah, it's a super highway as far as I'm concerned for all kinds of stuff, you know.
Right. Well, let's get into what I know everybody's wanting to hear is your encounters. Where were you, and kind of take us through your first time that you ever encountered one of these things.
Okay. And, you know, I think I told you before, or I've told people before, I don't have any blood-curdling, scary stories yet. I figure I'll probably get into that if I ever get to go out with Coonbo and Bear or Dan or Vicky or somebody. The way they, you know, they rile them up, and so they will speak to them. And they've had some pretty close stuff. My first encounter, and I was like everybody else. This was about 87, 88. And I was like, you know, I wasn't what you call a skeptic or a non-believer. I was more of a hopeful, well, that's interesting. I hope there's a Loch Ness Monster, and I hope there's a Bigfoot, you know. And I had seen the Bigfoot movie and paid my money to go see it when I was in the 70s or whenever that came out. I don't even remember the Patterson-Gimlin thing. Right. And, but, you know, I really didn't even think about it at that point. And I was fishing with a buddy of mine, and we were fishing this old flood control reservoir. It had been built back in the 50s, and it's heavily surrounded with trees, and you can barely get a little two-man in. In fact, we'd have to cut a place out every season and kind of keep it whacked out with a machete or something just to get our two-man bass boat in. So that kept a lot of people from trying to fish from the bank, and I had permission to be out there, and it's out in the middle of the sticks, not far from where I live right now. And we're just fishing along, and I'm doing some flipping. You flip a jig over into the brush piles, and so you've got to kind of keep the boat still. It was about late August, I guess, because it was almost dove season. That's the 1st of September, and so he was doing the trolling motor and keeping the boat just. We didn't have any wind, I don't think, at all that day, so we'd stay right in one spot. And as we were moving down, he was turned one way, and I was turned in towards the bank. He was casting out. And I thought I saw what, you know, at first I thought, oh, it's a squirrel. Kind of, you know how they do play hide and go seek from you around the tree stump.
Right.
Or the base of a tree, not a stump necessarily, but so that's what I saw first. It was a little brown fur, and I thought, oh, it's a little squirrel, you know, and he's gonna play that game with me. That's why you always take two people when you go shooting squirrels, because they'll, if you try to walk around and get one, you know, he'll just keep going around the tree, and you never get a shot at him. But so we moved down a little bit further, and I wasn't really paying attention to it. I've seen millions of squirrels, and the next thing I saw was it was dominant. I mean, it was predominant. It was a kneecap. That is what it was. It wasn't a squirrel. It was a kneecap, and it was the same color, brownish, had reddish tint to it, and I thought, what's this? I mean, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, really. And as I moved around more, I saw the part of his lower calf, and then his thigh, and then I saw a little bit of hand. And right about the time I saw a hand, and I mean, it wasn't super duper hairy, but it had that hair on it. And I'm still almost in shock, but I wasn't scared or anything. This face comes around from the side of it and just stares at me. And his lips kind of move a little bit, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him. And first I kind of quit fishing, and then I thought, well, wait, I don't want this moment to end. So I'm just going to pretend like I'm still fishing, and I'm going to try to look at him, you know, with a peripheral view, so he doesn't think I'm staring at him. And I figure he thought he was still stealth, and that I couldn't see him. And we stared at each other. You know, I don't know. It's like a lot of people say, what seems like 20 minutes may only be 5 seconds, but this was quite a long time, because we were working this bank real slow. And he got a little bit more braver, and he moved his eye. His hand kind of moved around more, and his head, you know, got looking at me. And people always go, what his face look like? You know, well, he had a brow ridge and kind of a conical shaped head, and not extremely, definitely not enormous, like patty looking thing, and not extremely long hair. Didn't have a whole lot of long hair on his face, just some whiskers, I guess, looking a little longer around his chin area. His mouth looked more human than ape, to a certain extent. It's hard to describe that, but I'll never forget the nose. Imagine, you know, a little teddy bear, like you had when you're a kid or you've seen, and take the snout off, and just put the little button nose on there. It was a cute kind of little button nose, but it wasn't an ape nose. It wasn't flattened out and flared and wide open nostrils. You know, it was more like a little, and I hate to use that word, but cute. It was kind of a cute little nose and scary ass looking eyes. The eyes were, of course, he was gazing at me, and maybe I'm the first guy he'd ever seen fishing, or what. And I say he because right about the time I was going to nudge my friend, and I hadn't done it yet because I was still kind of freaking out. I got a good look. The sun was coming in from the sun was coming right from the west. I don't know exactly what time it was, but it was probably 7 during that time, 6:37. So the sun was coming in through the trees, and I saw a little dangly penis between his legs, just a little.
Right.
little penis there.
Yeah.
So I know it was male, and he's still staring at me, and he kind of moves his mouth once in a while, and kind of purses his lips and opens his mouth a little bit, and I didn't really get a real good look at his teeth, but it didn't look like a bunch of blocked, patty-looking, or whatever people always say. They weren't really those blocky-looking teeth. I'm not sure what kind of teeth to describe, because he never opened his mouth fully, where I could say definitely, well, he had canines or he didn't or anything, but it didn't look blocky to me. And small ears, close to his head, and very, very little hair on that brow ridge that seemed to go all the way across his forehead and back behind his, right above his ear. I remember that. There was very little hair on that. And so I nudged my friend, and I said, you need to turn around here and look. We got us a fishing buddy. And, and I knew this wasn't a fake. There's no way this could be fake. This was real. And but I wasn't scared. I was more just dumbfounded, I guess. And he goes, what? And he swiveled around in his chair, and immediately saw, at least full view of this thing crouching. And he screamed. I mean, he screamed and said, WTF,
Yeah.
and about threw his pole in the water. And this thing, its eyes got as big as golf balls, and it let out a grunt, kind of he didn't scream. It was more like a scared grunt, like if you prod a horse, with something. Don't, what do you, and run off or whatever. And he jumped straight up like a spring. It would have busted my kneecaps the way he jumped up and took off running on two legs. And we watched him run, I don't know, about 25 yards within seconds. And there's a big wood pile in front of him. And I figured, well, he'll run around that. He didn't run around it. He jumped right over it. It was probably 4 or 5 foot high and probably 6, 7 foot across of just timber that I guess the farmer had cut some dead timber out and laid out there. And when he hit the other side of it, he immediately went down to all fours, and that's when he shifted into fifth. And I mean, he was Don Johnson's brother. I mean, and I mean, it wasn't no time until he was in the other part of the little forest in that gap, and that was the end of that. And my buddy, I don't think he didn't want to talk about it after that. And in fact, when I started getting interested in investigating this stuff, he made me promise never to mention his name. And he didn't want to lose his job. He had a pretty good job, and and I don't know, he made up a lot of excuses why he didn't want any part of it. And I've tried to talk to him about it later and go, that was okay what we saw. I don't think nowadays you're not going to get fired, and all that. And,
Right.
But I mean, that's the way a lot of people are around here. They see stuff, and I don't care if it slaps them in the face and gives them a banana, that they aren't going to say a word about it. And they don't want to get laughed at, and they're like some type of respected farmer or rancher or oil. Got a lot of oil people around here, and I know they see stuff, and they don't go tell their boss about it, or the police officers and stuff like that. But anyway, Brenton, that was my first.
So you all are in a boat, and you're going down the bank fishing, and this thing was hiding basically behind a tree by the river, the bank of the water that you're fishing. Okay. Now, when you started getting this better view, is it because he ended up coming out more, or did you the boat continued on and you got a better view because the tree wasn't blocking because you all were moving?
Well, in specifics, you had some willow, you had some smaller tree, brush, hackberry, with just any kind of bush that normally grows around these parts, around a pond. Probably some coontail and this and that in there. And bass love that kind of stuff. They get in there and that's where they feel protected, and they can dart out and get smaller fish and stuff. Right. And then right beyond that, I'm going to guesstimate, because I've been asked 100 times, trust me, how far was it? You know, we want to know how far exactly. Well, if I had to get out and do it all over again, I'd say, without making it up, 10 to 12 feet, because you've got about a 4 to 5 foot area that the bank, because of the rising tides or what have you, that's where the big trees start, about 4 or 5 foot. And we were just, 3 or 4 foot at best from the bank. So I add that all together, and I'm thinking about 10 to half, or a dozen feet from the larger trees, the larger tree line. And that's where this thing was. And the second part of your question, no, he didn't move as much around to greet me. We, like you said, we drifted past, and I guess he felt confident that he couldn't be seen, because I didn't, I hurried up and kept trying to act like I was doing what I was doing, but I couldn't think about anything else at the time. I'm glad I didn't hook a big lunker, and have to fight the fish. I probably would have had to give it to him, but that's how it went, just like that.
Right. So, but you ended up getting a full view of the thing as you were drifting through, right?
Well, yeah, I never, when he was crouched down, I never got to see his right kneecap and his calf, but I did see a little bit of the inside of his right thigh, and okay. I could see his whole body totally from, his left side, half of his body.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a visual of kind of what you were like. So the tree was kind of blocking a little bit of one side of him, but as you went around, you got a better and better view and mm-hmm. a full view of his face. Now, what color hair was on it?
I was raised, when I grew up, my dad raised quarter horses. And if you had to describe it in that way, for any horse people out there, he was a sorrel, or that's what color you would call that brownish red. Some of them are a little bit more redder than other horses, but it was a brown, kind of a dirty brown with reddish tint throughout, is the best way to, like a squirrel, kind of. Right. The squirrel they got around here anyway.
Okay. And so this thing is sitting there crouched. He stays where he's at, because, I think that when they stay still, a lot of time that doesn't draw, your eyes draw to something that's moving. So if something stays still, a lot of times that type of color blends quite well. But the fact that you all are flipping and pitching, these structures near the bank, you're looking and, you're seeing it. But I noticed one thing you said, that the eyes was scary as hell. What was it? Can you describe the eyes and what was so scary about it?
This is a hard one. Yes, I totally agree with you on that, and so would anybody else like me that likes to. I used to. I don't do as much of it, but deer hunt. You can go out there in a clown suit. I've literally sat right on the hood of my truck and not moved a muscle, and had them come right up and lick the tires and rub up against the truck until they smelled me.
Right.
So if you don't move, a lot of things won't see you. And that's what these things are all about, I believe, when they're hiding. They don't move a muscle, I don't think. And
right.
But what was now you got me. I was thinking about deer hunting. I forgot what you asked me.
The eyes. What was what can you describe the eyes? What was scary about the eyes?
That was that is the kind of the strangest part, like I said, of the whole encounter, I guess. They were roundish, very round, not extremely giant by any means. They were dark, but they seemed, you know, if I got to say a way to describe it that makes sense to everybody, it was almost like they had some type of different kind of eye, not lash, but the lids of the eyes, the bottom and top lid of the eye seemed different. And I mean, it could have been an injury, you know, it could have been anything, but it was almost like, not as exaggerated, but kind of like a chameleon, you know, the lizard-looking chameleon things that can change color. They've got those eyes that sit on the socket. Well, not like that, but what I mean by that, where it was like they almost had a protective, instead of having at least this one, instead of having a lid on the top and the bottom like we do, it almost was like it had a lid that surrounded the eye more than just on the top and bottom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Huh. And what the color was it? Did you see whites of it, or did you just see one solid color?
Just one solid color, kind of a almost like a horse's eye. You know, I hate to call it black, because it's not really black if you look in a horse's eye. There's color in there. If you ever stand and stare at one, you can just see a prism of, you can see yourself in it, in color. But I think they're colorblind. But, excuse me, they were dark. They were dark eyes, dark brown, real dark brown.
Yeah, so when you see an eye that is all one color, I don't know if you ever have heard of some of the stories that you see on the internet of the black-eyed kids and things like that. And I've had people come and share some stories that they encountered someone with solid black eyes, and it scared them half to death, man, because it's not a normal thing, you know. Even if the eye was solid white, you know, it's like, wow, you know, what's going on with that?
Well,
but yeah,
don't get me wrong. I've had a couple of black eyes, Brenton. You know?
yeah. I've had a few black eyes,
but not like that. No.
Right. Yeah. That's a very, to me, I think that would be very scary. So when it was looking at you, when an eye is a solid color, you can't really tell where it's looking necessarily. You can't tell what it's thinking. Because we read a lot of nonverbal communications sometimes, I think, from eye movement to, you know, so if this thing is totally different in the way that the eyelids and everything work and it's all one color, yeah, that would be pretty scary. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of that was the fighting. I guess if you want to call it frightening, he didn't make any aggressions or anything at all, and but you could tell that he was staring straight at me. There was no watching my movement, watching my every movement. but I didn't see, I didn't really see a whole lot of expression. I guess if I was going to call the majority of the confrontation or the stare off, find an emotional sense to that, I'd have to say he was curious more than anything, until my buddy screamed and cussed, and then them eyes opened up wide, and it ran him off. But about you're going to ask this next, I bet you. How tall did I think he was? I'd have to say somewhere between 6.5, 7 foot, but definitely not over 7 foot. Probably more, because I was down below, and that's hard to make a judgment on something that's a little bit elevated above you. I'd probably say six-ish, about my size. I'm about 6'2", 6'3". I don't think he could have been any taller than that.
Was it thin or hefty or
thin? Yeah, had a waist like a little girl, and a kind of a barrel, like a pure muscle. There was no fat whatsoever. The calf, I really noticed the calf and the thigh were just, you could see the muscle, where he was bent and down on his haunches, and kind of animally. I mean, and when I say animally, I saw some grass and stuff. I thought, man, this thing's that's what I was saying to myself, this thing's real.
right?
I didn't smell anything, but it's just the way it looked, there's no way it was a costume. It wasn't.
Right.
It's just,
dude in a costume couldn't jump the woodpile, so.
No.
Yeah.
And most people can't keep their mouth shut,
Yeah.
They can't stay there and,
I think also when you see one, they're not built like a human all the way. Even if someone's looking at it and they can't quite say what it is that's not human, but the arm ratio to the leg ratio, from the foot to the knee to the hip, and you know what I'm saying, all the proportion is not exactly like a human. So when you see it, it's it's not a dude in a suit. You know what I mean? And even the way they walk, I'm sure when you saw it run, it didn't run like a human either.
No, not at all. It was like I've said this before. I asked somebody because I guess the second sighting I had, and that's a quick one. I hate to jump the gun, but there wasn't really much to it. I was standing kind of back in the shadows, and the sun was just, had just gone down, but I could clearly see this thing. It was 9-10 foot tall, and it had a longer beard. It was darker, it was blacker looking, and there wasn't enough light to see some of the features, but I saw what I consider a young one. This thing was a full-grown one, and it had a big old chest and all that, and it's like you're saying, it wasn't proportioned like a human, and it sure didn't walk like one. I actually called Bear on that one and said, I saw something. And he goes, "What'd you see, Hoss?" And I told him how it walked. It walked like, kind of like a cross-country skier is the best way to put it. And there was a little snow on the ground and all that, but that's how it walked, like a cross-country skier, just effortless, just perfect. The step down was so smooth that it wasn't like a human. A human, when they walk, we've all got that heel to toe.
Right, yeah.
That same old walk, unless you're crippled up or something. And this wasn't like that at all. So, And again, I apologize for going on about
No,
that.
that's
But
all right. When you seen it walk, where was it? How did you come upon it, or kind of thing, if you would, on that second one?
On the second one, I was at a place that I had been investigating. I had found some prints, and I've heard some calls, and I had an experience with I call it the drunk rooster. We had roosters. A couple had a rooster left of me, and there was another couple across the creek line in a wooded area, and they had a rooster. And in the morning, real early in the morning, you'd be out there, the sun wasn't even hardly up yet, and you'd be drinking your coffee, and you'd hear those roosters every morning. But the morning that I'm talking about, I heard one rooster go off, and he did his cockle-doodle-doo, and the other one followed suit, and they always had kind of a shouting match for just a few minutes every morning, and trying to wake everybody up, But this time, down someplace in the slough area, where nobody lived or anything like that, there was a repeat of it, and but it didn't sound like a normal rooster. It sounded more like a retarded drunk rooster or something, and it just wasn't right. It was, that's the best way I can describe it. You'd hear these immaculate, proud roosters crowing on the left and right, and then down in that slough, there was this crummy imitation one, and so I was going, I've never heard anything like that, and well, come to find out after checking with the Outlaws, that's real common. They'll imitate anything, including us. A lot of times, they've heard them chattering, like people talk back and forth when you're out hunting or something, and they've heard them do that and all kinds of stuff. But and then it wasn't but a day or two after that, I had walked down in there and was kind of standing back against the tree area, and it was right before it got completely dark, and this thing was walking from one area of that slough into another forested area near where I lived at the time, and it was big, and it just kind of looked over at me like,
So it looked over and saw you?
Didn't even give me do what now?
It looked over and saw you as it was walking?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looked over and it was like if you pass somebody on the street, most of the time you don't even look at each other, but he just glanced over at me and just kept walking. He was gone. He wasn't walking fast either. He was just like he was, I don't know how to say it. Well, that's the best way to say it. It looked like he was cross-country skiing.
Yeah. Do you think it is because of the way that the knee and things like that work? It seems as if they have when they bring the foot up, it kind of the knee kicks out or something, and the foot comes around, but it's not like it's lifting high or anything like that. It's a real strange motion, but it seems to be very efficient, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I admire a guy that I'm going to have the privilege to meet him this weekend in Hanobi Bigfoot Festival here in Oklahoma, and that's M.K. Davis.
Yeah,
and he's done some work, on that Patterson-Gimlin film like nobody's business. Now that's research.
Yeah.
Now that's true research, where you just sweat blood and guts and everything else going over stuff like that and spending years on it. And that gave me a good, now that Patty film, that's a walk all in itself. And why couldn't she do more of a stealthy walk if she wanted? Or maybe the boogers down here, who knows what the reason is, but I don't think they all have just one walk. And I don't think it's like a woman walks different than a man.
Yeah, yeah.
you know. And I think a dead run is more like a NFL linebacker. But
Yeah.
that stealthy, I'm not making it. I couldn't hear anything, and there was there might have been a little snow powdered, but it was a lot of leaves and brush. I would have heard something because it wasn't that far from me. I guess this was probably 25 yards that
Right.
walked past me, and I never heard anything. And
Huh.
it was big. I mean, I didn't have very good stuff to reference it to. And again, I am not an astronaut, or I'm I'm not a too scientifically inclined. I can work on computers and stuff, but I had to guess this thing at a 9 foot or bigger, and
Right.
a real muscular but slender build, skinny waist. It's just amazing how slender it is from, let's say, the bottom of the rib cage down to the pelvic region is the best way to
Right.
recollect it. Just real like that. Then the legs were so muscly that it appeared to be bigger, and he did have it looked like a winter. He had some age on him, and he had a longer beard. I remember that, and longer hair coming off of that conish looking head, and longer hair on his arms. Because when he walked by, he was swinging his arms, and I saw the longer. This one was almost black looking, but of course it was dark, and who knows what he looked like, you know,
Yeah.
in broad daylight, because it was kind of, the sun was already been obscured by the trees, and it was pretty dark. But it's like you were asking or saying, the walk is just a totally different than a human walk.
I think it's very interesting when people you see them and they have an actual beard and somewhat like a hairdo, like it's so this thing had hair that actually came down on that was longer on top of the head, kind of like a human would have hair. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not so much. I'm gonna describe this in a southern way, the best I can. More like what they call a mullet. There wasn't a whole ton of hair around that brow ridge,
Right.
but there was more facial coming down from the cheeks and the chin. It looked long, long as 6-8 inches of kind of straggly longer hair, and then from the back of the head, which that's the last thing I saw of him when he went by, was a side view, and then he turned and went into the woods, and the hair was longer in the back, maybe up to 12 inches or more. I noticed that.
Huh.
That was a lot different than the first one I'd seen.
I mean that's interesting for real. Because that seems kind of like a human trait, to have hair on the head and on a beard. It's not something you would think about. Um, Very interesting. Did it have the sagittal crest? Since you were looking at it from the side, did it have seem to have that long, oblong skull?
Oh yeah. It definitely a dome, or more of that
That cone head,
head,
sagittal.
that cone head looking, but maybe not as cone head as some of the photos or just depictions of them that I've seen. But it definitely had, that ape-like primate top of
Right.
his head for sure.
Okay. Did it seem to have a forehead that you could see, or was the hair down on the forehead, or how much of the face was kind of something that you could see the skin?
The I want to, that's a tough one because these things have a heck of a brow ridge, and it's hard for me anyway, on the two that I've seen anyway, to almost tell you where the eyebrows start and the top of the scalp. It just seems to be bulged right there and comes together as one almost across. And it gets worse when it gets up over the eye. It's more pronounced up over the eye. And, I want to say that there was some bangs of some kind on this thing. Like I said, I think he had a good, he was older, by his size alone, and definitely male. I didn't see any mammary glands, and tall, and he had a good head of hair. I do remember that. I mean, more than I had seen the first time. Anyway, at least with the beard and coming off about halfway from the chin, there was hair coming down, and then in the back. Mainly, I can't tell you exactly about the hair on the forehead as far as bangs, because I can't be certain of that. I mean, I can't remember.
Okay, well, yeah, that's all you can do is say tell us what you saw.
Right.
Wow. When you see something that huge and with that much muscle, obviously you'd seen a smaller one that was extremely athletic, able to move at a very, very fast pace. So when you saw this huge one that was even bigger, did that kind of startle you at all? Were you scared at all?
Oh, no, yeah, just if he would have came at me, I imagine I just would have stood there. Whether it would be from stupidity or just, yeah. I mean, I know you couldn't run from him.
Right.
I mean, he was walking faster than anybody I've ever seen in my life run, and he's just striding along.
Right.
And I think I surprised him, but he wasn't startled. He didn't act one bit concerned or startled, or I didn't see any of that. That when you go, you don't even have to be hunting; you can just be walking along. Any animal, I don't care what it is, a bear, a big cat, or anything, they've got that startled look on their face, and they have a reaction to it where they run away. Usually, they'll run away. Hopefully, most of them run away. Skunks, that's a good example. Skunks don't have that. They'll just stare you right in the eye a lot of times. I've run into skunks, and they'll just look at you with those little black, cute eyes and walk towards you sometimes. Sometimes they'll turn around and walk off, but I've had them walk towards me, and I don't think they were rabid, and they don't seem very scared or concerned. They probably know why they don't need to be that scared,
Yes,
and that's the way I felt with this thing. It was like, oh, what are you doing there? Oh, whatever. And turned back in and made a right into the tree line. And I'm just standing there going, I don't believe what I just saw.
I mean, in some ways, don't you think that implies that they know that they are the alpha predator kind of thing? They're the king of the jungle, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it goes along with mine and every other investigator I've ever talked to. Just about I think we all, include. I bet you do too. I mean, everybody listening probably that knows anything about them at all has realized by now they're migratory, and whether they have a small migratory area where they patrol it. I mean, there's people that, these are theories, but some of them have been researched pretty heavily about their Um, they've got statuses within the group. One of them that always interests me, I don't like talking about it, because I've had some people go, oh, I don't see anything there and all that. And then I've had other people say, well, yeah, I can see it. And I mean, I heard it whoop and I heard it cough, and I think I got a picture. It was a blind shot of a small one. And I think they got sentinels, little guards, somebody in the group is watching you while the other people are, or beasts or creatures, whatever you want to call them. I call them prairie apes sometime. I brought that up with Bear and Matt one night. I thought prairie ape was a good name for here, because you go outside of the tree line on some of these rivers, and that's all there is prairie and wheat fields. So the name seemed to fit.
Right.
But it's interesting how some of the stories, like the Outlaws have told about what they call an alpha male. And I'm sure that the one I saw was an alpha male from the size and the way he wasn't, I mean, he could have torn my head off. And he didn't do that. And so, I think, I do think that they have all kinds of different sizes, and I think they're like people in only in this way, that the studies that I've done on primates, because I do believe that they may have a human genome in them someplace and all that stuff. And again, I'm not a scientist, and I don't even want to talk like I think I am. But they may have human genomes in them, because they do resemble a human in some ways. But I still think that there's some type of primate. And the way primates are, you've got nice ones and you've got bad ones.
Right.
And I've heard of chimps being the worst out of them. Chimpanzee, 5-6 times stronger than a man. They'll go in. They've killed people. They've pulled their arms out of their sockets. They regularly go and raid other chimp troops and kill young ones and eat them.
Right.
And I don't think they're all like that. Then it seems to me, from just a little bit of studying I've done over the years, that the big ones, like the mountain gorilla and some of the larger, like the big gray-backed and all them, they'll charge and they'll roar at you. They'll beat their chest. They'll throw rocks and sticks at you and fling their own feces even at you. But there's not very many reports of them actually attacking and killing people like there has been with chimpanzees. And these big alpha males, I think, are protecting their stuff and their little turf. And I don't know. I'm not too sure about some of the, somebody will see some sticks laying together and say, well, there you go. There's your evidence that something, one of these things has built a fort, or that's a warning about this or that. That may be. It's interesting. But I think they're like anything else. You get in their road and they're on their little path home or to their hunting ground, or what, maybe they've got a bush or a group of bushes someplace and they're heading to it, and that's what's on their mind. Getting a drink of water or getting that next meal. And I think if you try to stop them, I think they'd hurt you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's reasons when people get attacked. The stories of that kind of thing. There's reasons we probably aren't even aware of. They might have a young one around, or who knows. But yeah, there seems to be most of the time they see you and they'll keep going. They don't want nothing to do with humans, and and they're opportunists. They take a cow or whatever. But That's what I like collecting the stories. It's very interesting to hear the full gamut of what people have experienced and encountered, and all the information. And I like to interview people that are the flute players. I want to hear what they saw, how they felt. And a lot of times, I think it's perception. They they didn't really hear a Bigfoot speaking to them in their mind. It could have been real to them but I don't think it was the Bigfoot. I think it was something else going on, which could have actually been. I have collected paranormal type stories. I don't think a mind speak thing is a Bigfoot speaking to you. That's something else, and you might want to go see the priest about that, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But that's my opinion. That's my opinion, and I respect people's opinions about things, and but I love listening to you and Bear, Kumbo, and Matt, and gleaning what I can from people who have been doing this for a long time, and people who have investigated for 20 years. That you should listen. You're going to learn something.
Well, those guys got more experience. For one thing, they've gone out and they've gone out to different places. I basically, and I had started. I am the founding and just about the sole member of and hopefully I won't be for very long. I've run into 2 or 3 local guys, and we've been going out. Evans and Chuck and Lucille, and probably the gal that got me to open up. I kept a lot of this stuff to myself, like a lot of other locals did. And Dana Matthews, she was out in the field and going to these Bigfoot conventions, and she wasn't afraid to talk about it. And she's highly respected in my community, and beautiful gal, and talented and smart. And I thought, well, you know what? If that little gal can do it, I can. And then the second thing was, and after I saw it for the first time, that's when I knew these things are real, and I don't care what anybody thinks of me. And if they think I'm crazy, that's fine. Another thing, another good reason I like the Outlaws, they're definitely not what you'd call flute players. They like to call it woo. They're not, but on the other hand, if you want to get scolded by the admins in there, like Mr. Jim Hart and a few others, you just bash on somebody that comes in there and gives everybody's got that free will of speech, and that's what I like about it. I've been in I belong to several groups, and some of them are nothing but space aliens and cosmic waves and little dots floating around, and portals and cloaking and more intelligent than we are, and all kinds of stuff. And you know what? I'm all about it for them. And to be honest, I hope some of that stuff's true, because that would really make this an interesting field, And I think to say that doesn't exist or this doesn't exist is just like the people who said the mountain gorilla didn't exist, or even better and more recent, the panda bear. They said that was a bunch of hokey. And, of course, you can go see one in a zoo now. And that gets me to the other deal. I love going out in the field, and I love, looking for tracks and talking to people that are think along the same lines, believe they've had sightings. It's good to hear the sighting stories from them over and over. I don't get tired of it. But what scares me, I hope you may want to edit this out. I don't know, Brenton. You may edit this one. Okay. In one way, hope that they don't lock them down and have them all laid out, alive or dead, and pretty soon you can go to the zoo and see them and all that, because that would be the end of at least the big part of the Bigfoot part of your show. You know, I mean, why would you even have a show about Bigfoots when, I mean, it'd be like me having a show about kangaroos.
Right.
I mean, it's not unbelievable, but it wouldn't draw in people who are interested in the unknown.
Oh, it wouldn't be a mystery. It wouldn't be so much.
No, it wouldn't be a mystery to search.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why would you? Yeah. And same goes with UFOs and all that other stuff. So I don't bash anybody for thinking like that at all.
Yeah.
I just I got my theories on it, and
I
believe it's kind of flesh and blood.
I believe the UFO stuff is a real phenomenon. I believe that even the paranormal stuff is a real phenomenon. But when it comes to the creature Bigfoot itself, I just think that that is an actual real entity. And there's a lot of misunderstanding when a person says that they think that it's a Nephilim or something like that. But when you think about when, like in the scriptures, when David killed Goliath, Goliath would be what we would call a Nephilim in the scriptures. He was a giant, and these giants, supposedly, if you take the biblical narrative from Genesis 6, when it's a hybrid creature. So, but it can be killed, it bled, he cut his head off, and all that kind of thing. So these are real creatures. So there might be other things that take advantage of these. I mean, I've collected stories where someone was out bigfooting, and they actually ended up having stuff happen where something walked up to them. They could see the footprints, but they couldn't see it. But then they started having things happening at their house. I think there was other supernatural kind of things that took advantage of this guy out looking for stuff, and they tricked, this entity tricked them. And if people don't believe in the supernatural, then that's fine. But I can tell you, I've experienced a few things that weren't, Sasquatch related, but they were completely a supernatural thing, and it was real. Just like when you saw a Bigfoot, you knew that was real. I've seen a few things myself that is unexplainable, but it was real. So that I let people tell their stories, and I learn, and sometimes I begin to help. It helps me to piece together the scenario of what it is. But yeah, I'm like you. I think that there is a human genome aspect to these Bigfoot. There's something. I believe they got some human DNA in them, and I guess from here we're coming up on an hour and a half. The show ended up being about an hour and a half.
Wow! I told you. I told you this can go on. I mean, you and I could talk for anybody with your knowledge and anybody else. You could sit and talk for hours about this, about what's your theory about man coming across the Bering Strait and making a lot of them sick, and they die off, and now they're starting to come back and migrate and this and that, and I'm always interested to hear, because your listeners ought to know, if they don't already know, you're a heck of a theologist. I mean, I know you know a whole lot about, especially the biblical studies on this stuff.
Yeah, and we were talking before, and I thought it was very interesting because it seems that the population of these Sasquatch are coming back, and we were speculating about, the disease and stuff that even decimated populations that were native to this land when the white people came here to this country, and did that have an effect on the Sasquatch, or what was it that knocked that population down and seemingly is coming back? But those are mysteries to search. I love doing that, man. And
Perfect name for the show. Yeah, and not to correct you in any way, I know exactly what you meant. When you said white, you meant European, but you could also is just as well say the black people. We brought, black people were brought into the country as well early on before. Blacks and whites came all in, the slave trade and everything else. We don't know what all different things that all the races brought in and what it eventually did to the native species and this and that. Oh, the only thing I was going to mention is because you brought it up to me one time, we were chatting on the phone, the casino video.
Right.
Yeah, and so I was wondering if you got a chance to watch that little YouTube reenactment of the casino. That's just, it's just a crow's fly right across here from where I live now, and I was wondering what you thought of that real quick if you got time.
I didn't really watch it other than the when we were talking, I seen the reenactment of the creature walking. But I didn't really go back and catch the story. But, I will do that, though. It sounded interesting. I ended up forgetting about it, to tell you the truth.
Well, I'm sorry my interview wasn't, I don't have any blood and gore. And,
dude, listen, I think your encounter while you were fishing is absolutely incredible. That was I heard that. I heard it before. As you were telling it, I remembered hearing that because I remembered you talking about the chicken man thing, but I forgot about what your encounter was because we didn't talk about your encounters really. You didn't, I like to hear them for the first time along with the audience most of the time. But that was a very interesting account of how you basically went from not knowing to and how because it was interesting to me, not just from the explanation of what the creature was looking at you not worried, but I'm also sitting here looking at you telling the story and how you were reacting to the creature from the, you know what I mean, where you were not freaking out, and also the Bigfoot wasn't freaking out. So sometimes people think that I'm only searching the mysteries of the cryptid, but I'm also searching the mysteries of the people, and that's just as interesting to me. The reaction of you. So, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and you have my number, man. You can call anytime, and maybe you can come back and tell some more stories and stuff, and we can talk about the population things bringing back and just different things that we were talking about.
I'd love to. Yeah. Maybe we'll have some new information to share with you by then.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the different research that you've done. And yeah, I'll tell you what, we'll have you come back too, and we'll look at some of your images that you have. And
okay, that'd be
talk
great.
About some of that. All right, man. Well, thank you very much, Kurt. If you would hold on the line for just a second. And
sure.
Everybody out there in YouTube land, I really appreciate you all watching. And if anyone out there has a story that they would like to share on the show, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com. Give a brief description of your story and contact information. And if anyone wants to contribute to help make this show, you can go to a link in the description, PayPal me link, and click that link. It's super easy to use, and I appreciate every contribution that's made. Until next time, God bless, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.